Hi, 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 and hey, Beetle fans. Welcome to another episode of Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. This is a bi-weekly show that happens every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, in which we talk solely about the solo careers of the Beatles. Once in a while, we'll talk about the group, but for the most part, it's a discussion on the Beatles' solo careers. I'm Ken Michaels. I'm one of the regular co-hosts of the show, also known for my syndicated radio Beatles show called Every Little Thing. Also, another podcast show that I do on the Beatles called Things We Said Today. And on today's show, we're going to be doing a special tribute to John Lennon, as this will be the Monday before the December 8th anniversary of his passing. So, along with my co host and a special guest, we'll all be remembering that night and talk about what John Lennon has meant to all of us. So to join me on the show tonight, we have our regulars. First of all, we have the Queen. The Queen, we call her Her Majesty, actually, here on the show. When
And
it
she
comes
is a
to,
pretty nice girl.
Or the
but she's
Sun
got a
Queen.
lot to say on this show.
Yeah.
And of Beatles Media, social Beatles Media, and also the author of Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours to the Beatles' Lesser Known Tracks, and Michael Jackson FAQ. All that's left to know about the King of Pop. She's got to make her book title shorter. Let's welcome Kit O'Toole to the show. Hi, Kit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you. I should also note that you mentioned Thriller. This is also the anniversary of the release of Thriller
Wow.
tonight.
Oh, okay. So that was
man,
there you go.
1982.
I had no idea.
Right?
Two. Yep,
1982.
1982. Yep,
38 years ago today.
Big album. Big album.
Okay.
yep, indeed.
Also on the show, we have one of the regular co-hosts of a solo Paul McCartney podcast called Two Legs, which he hosts with Annie Nichols. He's putting out more shows at rapid fire right now. As soon as I put the homepage on YouTube, it's all Two Leg shows. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Let's welcome Tom Hunyadi to the show.
Hello,
Hi,
Ken.
Tom.
Hello, Kit, Joe, and mystery guests. I hope you all are doing well.
Nice.
Also on the show is Joe Mayo, who you know as Mean Mr. Mayo, who has his own YouTube channel. Has been doing it for a long time. And I think he just reached, dare I say it, 10,000 subscribers.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
hear it for Joe.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, thank you. So it's good to be here as usual, everybody. So let's go underway and start.
Mm-hmm. And also on the show was the very first special guest we had here on our show. We like to think of him as our Bill Murray for this show on Talk More Talk. You've known him for so many years, since 1978, I think it was, when he started working at Beatlefan magazine as a writer, consistently writing for them. And several years back, he wrote a book called Change in Times, 101 Days That Shaped a Generation, which is all about the 101 days that followed the President Kennedy assassination and how it affected our culture here in the US. And of course, that included the arrival of the Beatles in America. And that's Al Sussman. Welcome back, Al.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Al.
How are you all?
Good.
Great.
And
Good
back
to
by
have you back.
popular
Thank-
demand.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
As I said before, tonight's show is going to be a tribute to John. But as usual, at the top of the show, we have a bunch of Beatle news to get to. So why don't we get started? First of all, news about McCartney III. You know, news from 2 weeks ago seems like it was a year ago, because there's so much that's been coming out about this album, which has been delayed now another week due to unforeseeable production delays. Its release date is now December the 18th. And by the way, while I'm saying this, the next show that we plan to do, which is on McCartney III, which is going to be in 2 weeks because the album was supposed to be out December 11th. Now that it's been delayed, our next show will be on McCartney III, but the following week. So it'll be 3 weeks from today. So keep that in mind. Okay, folks?
Paul's fault.
It's all Paul.
Or
Let's go,
December
Paul.
21st.
Yep.
Right. Okay. McCartney III, in addition to all the colored vinyl versions and standard vinyl and CD versions, will also be available on cassette. This is what happened shortly after our last show, the announcement of all these new CD bundles that you can buy. The CDs are for 4 different colors, and each color will come with a bonus demo track. There's one different track for each color, and there are a variety of bundles you can get for each color, coming with either a mask for COVID-19, a t-shirt, a pouch with the McCartney III dice, and a cap. And I'm also told that you can purchase the CDs separately.
Right.
Okay. And there's 2 versions of that as well.
Two
Cheaper
versions. So
versions.
yeah, so one will be coming in like a little pouch case like this, and then the other one will probably end up being a digipack like so, like we're used to now. So
Okay. And certainly by the time we do the McCartney III show, Tom will show us every version of every
pretty
single
much. I'm already 10
vinyl.
deep. I'm already 10 deep.
In addition to this, last Monday it was announced that another colored vinyl edition had come out. This one's in deep orange. They say it's a limited edition, but it doesn't tell you how many were made. It is available at udiscovermusic.com. That's the letter U, discovermusic.com. But wait, there's more. They just released the CD, what they call an SHM CD version of McCartney III in Japan, that has all 4 bonus tracks that you can order. Another EP from Paul that he did for Spotify just came out last Friday. He seems to do this on Fridays. This time with the theme of family, including 6 songs: Mama's Little Girl, Deliver Your Children, Put It There, Heaven on a Sunday, Bip Bop, and Little Woman Love. Before this, Paul did EPs with the themes for home and the holiday season. Okay, following the November 10th YouTube premiere of the newly remastered Rupert and the Frog song, on November the 10th, YouTube premiered the new remaster for the video for Paul's Coming Up. Again, very sharp and just so clear. Excellent job on that. Kind of makes me wonder if we're going to get a McCartney Years
I hope so.
remaster.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
That'd be
could
great.
be.
Keeps sneaking out all these different videos remastered from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Paul is good.
oh, I'm saying it is time for a part 2. You know, he's had many videos since the release of the McCartney Years that can be added to the McCartney Years if it does get upgraded to Blu-ray. So there'll be plenty of space. And as we know, a couple videos from Flaming Pie weren't on the original release of the McCartney Years. So there's still plenty of videos to go that can be added, and I do hope it happens. So it's really cool when we do get these little sneak-ins, like you said, of videos that have been cleaned up, and they've been looking really good.
Yeah, best I've seen.
Yeah.
And the McCartney Years goes back to 2004 already.
Yes.
Wow. God, it doesn't seem that long ago.
Some more news on Paul. He was interviewed in a new podcast show, which is called Smartless, which is hosted by Jason Bateman with Will Arnett and Sean Hayes. It's an Apple podcast. Haven't heard it yet. Hope to get around to it. Paul is being nominated for a Grammy Award. Did you know this? For
Yes.
Best Boxed or Special Limited Edition Package for the collector's edition of Flaming Pie. Paul is listed as one of the art directors for the set. There you go. Okay. I just read something, and I'm not totally certain or clear about all the details about it, but there are plans on the BBC to run a special of Paul at the Cavern Club from 2 years ago when he gave a concert for Egypt Station. And it's going to run close to Christmas time. There's also supposed to be a 1-hour interview with Paul with one of Britain's best loved actors and superfans, Idris Elba, which is going to air on BBC One and BBC iPlayer in December, and also on BBC Radio 2 and BBC Sounds. As we hear more about this, we'll let you know, especially if it's online and if you can stream it. Okay, book news here. Author Jerry Hammack has just finished the 5th and final volume of his series on his books on the Beatles, called The Beatles Recording Reference Manual. Let It Be Through Abbey Road, 1969 to 1970, and that's now available on Amazon. Beatles author and historian David Bedford has a new book out called The Country of Liverpool, which explores how country music is a much overlooked influence on the Beatles and how big a part it played in Liverpool's rich music history.
And may I say, I actually wrote a blurb for the book, so I've seen an advance copy.
Okay.
And I can personally tell you, it is really fascinating. You know, if you're
good.
interested, like me, in the musical roots of the Beatles, it's definitely a worthwhile read. You will be absolutely amazed at the number of country bands that came out of Liverpool. It's just a fascinating read. So I can personally attest to the fact that it's a great book.
Yeah, I've seen some of the articles you've written on this very theme. Okay. And I've done themes on the radio on the Beatles and country music. So you can now get this book through Amazon and also on BeatlesBookstore.com. Also, a select number of limited edition signed copies are also available through the Country of Liverpool.com. Okay, Peter Asher's recent book, The Beatles from A to Z, A Magical History Tour, has just been reprinted in paperback. In fact, if you go to the Fest for Beetlefans website, there is a page you can click on called Signed Books and Collectibles. With Peter's book, you can get a signed book plate with that. And so many of the current and recent Beatle books you can find on the website are signed by the author. Okay. Also, violinist Patrick Roberts has just released a new album called Imagine the Tribute with 11 songs, 9 of which are his covers of Beatles songs, plus there's a cover of Imagine, and also Saltwater, Julian Lennon song, which in fact has Julian on it with guitarist Tommy Emmanuel, and Julian is singing lead on it. And you could actually listen to it on YouTube. Thanks to John Bazzini for that information.
Thank you, John.
Few more news items. Brian Ray from Paul McCartney's band has a new song out called Got a New Thing, which is on Wicked Cool Records and was voted as the coolest song of the week by Little Steven for his Underground Garage channel. You can look for a new video coming, which will have Abe Laboriel Jr. in it, along with another friend of Brian's, Scott Schreiner. You can pre-order the signed single at brianray.com. And certainly amongst the biggest news we've heard in the last few days was from a press release concerning All Things Must Pass and plans for there to be a major release next year. And in fact, on Friday, you could actually go to YouTube and listen to a remix version of the song for All Things Must Pass. And what did you guys think? Because I think all of you heard it.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with you, Al?
I thought it's very nice. You know, it's the specterization is somewhat backgrounded, but it really emphasizes George's vocal, and you can hear the emotion in his vocal. And it's you know, it's very, obviously very poignant because it also was released on the weekend of the 19th anniversary of George's passing. So that adds, you know, an extra poignance, but I think it's very well done.
Right. And also the 50th anniversary of the album.
Right.
Yes,
as well.
Right.
Kit, any thoughts about the new remix?
Overall, I really liked it. I mean, there were some guitar parts in it, and those I'd never noticed before. You know, having such a clean mix of it. I mean, the only thing we were talking about it before we went on the air. The only thing that I nitpicked about a little bit was the horns. I would have liked to have had a little bit of reverb on the horns. The horns just were a little, I don't know, just a little too, you know, abrupt in the mix. I'm trying to think of how to describe it. I mean, they just stood out a little too much, I think. And I love horns. We talk about horns all the time on this show. We love horns. But I just would have liked a little reverb perhaps on them. But other than that, yeah, George's voice was stunning on this. I mean, it was wonderful just to really hear it. And overall, other than the horn part, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, Tom, how about you?
Yeah, I got to echo what Al said about the voice. It's very moving. I love that it's in the forefront of just like how John's voice is out front there with all of his, box sets that are coming out now with the Imagine and the Give Me Some Truth box set.
Right.
Just love it. It's very powerful. And what Kit said, I mean that was my only issue was just how the horn sounded on that mix, and it just really kind of took away from the song just a little bit. However, that being said, everything that I loved about it is getting me really excited about this release. It's just been, it's something that we've all been wanting for years. It's just like a super deluxe mega box set of All Things Must Pass, and hopefully, that's what we'll get. All of these songs that he started, during those sessions, but did later in years. I'm just really looking forward to it. But yeah, that track really got me excited for it. So good job so far.
Joe?
Well, it's
Anything you
very
wanna add?
thrilling, and I can't
Yeah.
really add more than what everyone has said pretty much. I mean, the vocals are just really prominent, clear. You can really hear George.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and it makes me excited to hear more. I never really minded Phil Spector in general, his production, although there's some tracks I think on All Things Must Pass that beg more for a little clarity. I was mentioning before the show, like a Waiting on You All, to be able to
Exactly.
hear the vocals for one. But at the same time, even though I love this All Things Must Pass version, somehow I'm thinking it's not quite the same because I'm used to hearing it obviously the way it was, and I
Yeah.
kind of missed something too. But no, overall I really enjoyed it. It made me thrilled to hear the rest of it. Hopefully coming pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Immediately, my ears went right to George's vocals.
Hmm.
And in particular, not only was it clear, but towards the end of the song, there are some harmony vocals that George did that I hadn't heard before. So I found that to be
Yeah.
fascinating. I'll have to pay
Right.
more attention about the horns now that you mention it.
Hmm.
But with all these remixes, I'm always fascinated to hear any of this stuff. I'll never say that it's better than the original because I think Phil Spector did a masterful job on All Things Must Pass, but it's always nice to have, an alternative. Just like with the Give Me Some Truth box set.
Right. And correct me if
Also,
I'm wrong, Ken. There was no release date in that press release, right?
no,
No.
no. But I will get to something that was said by Olivia, actually, in an interview with Olivia in just a moment. But first, I want to just mention that on Friday, it was Record Store Day. So we did have the new release. I can always count on Tom for this. My Sweet Lord, the reissue. Nice picture sleeve there. I love that
Yeah.
photo. And from what we understand, they're not saying it's a remix.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, we just got a
What?
question from one of our viewers here, from Bill Leary. Said, "Was it remixed or not?"
Yeah.
And
So what
we
it
were
says
just
on
talking
the
about that.
right. What it
Well, what's
says
odd
on
is that
the
the record, the supposedly, I mean, Paul Hicks is going to be doing, I
right.
guess, the album, right?
Sure.
And you thinking that this My Sweet Lord is going to be coming from the album. So
Right.
you wonder, was it remixed? I
But
mean,
apparently
I
not, because it says it just on the hype sticker. It says the reissue of the 1970 Angola pressing. So if it's just taken from that, then I would assume that it's not remixed or
but it
remastered.
sounds great. I mean,
Oh,
I thought
absolutely.
it sounded amazing.
Right.
And I said on a video that I made, I mean, I've heard My Sweet Lord how many gazillion times.
Yeah.
I never enjoyed it more than I did on hearing that record. I really love the sound of it.
Yeah. That's interesting because with Give Me Some Truth just coming out, Instant Karma was a single
Hmm.
that they
Right.
reissued, but that was a remix,
Right.
Right.
but apparently not with this.
Right.
So anyway. All right. One other thing here regarding All Things Must Pass, with very special thanks to Tom Brennan, one of our viewers. There was a live Zoom event that took place Friday called George Harrison Transcending the Beatles. It is almost an hour long, and it's the second episode in a Yoko Ono series of live events that is meant to be counting down to the opening of the University of Liverpool's new teaching and performance space called the Yoko Ono John Lennon Center, which will open in the fall of next year. This show is hosted by Roger Phillips. The first half of the special, they cover the Indian musical influences and the philanthropy work that George did. and that is with special guest Dr. Michael Jones of the University of Liverpool. The second half of this episode, they have Olivia Harrison being interviewed. And I should also mention the first episode in this series is actually called The Art of John and Yoko, which you can also get online. Now, in this interview with Olivia, she is asked, apart from All Things Must Pass, what her favorite solo George album is. And she cited Gone Troppo,
Wow.
which she
Wow.
referred to as a
Interesting.
sleeper, and also the George Harrison album from 1979.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, she was probably a big part of those songs, while vacationing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would imagine she probably had a lot of, a lot of input, or just being around George while recording those songs. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I will agree there. For the new reissue of All Things Must Pass, which they say in this interview, due out 2021, no other date, but Olivia said there will be outtakes and jams. She said that Danny and Paul Hicks have been through all the 24-track recordings and pulled out everything.
Wow.
And there will be a couple of CDs worth of extras. Now, the link for this special I have actually posted right on our Facebook page right before our show. And I also keep it on my important links page of my website at kenmichaelsradio.com. So in case anybody's watching this a few weeks from now and they can't find it on the Facebook page, it's also there on my website. And if you would like to learn more and make a contribution for the campaign for the Yoko Ono Lennon Center, you can visit this site. It's liverpool.ac.uk/Yoko. One more time, liverpool.ac.uk/Yoko. And we're going to end our news with some very sad news to report here, which is on the passing of Ryan Brady. Ryan was one of the co-hosts of the Paul McCartney podcast show called Take It Away. And he was killed from a solo vehicle car crash in Glassell Park, which is in the northeast of Los Angeles. He and Chris Mercer hosted the show. Ryan, I'm told, was only 34 years old.
Oh.
And a very enthusiastic McCartney fan.
Absolutely.
As you know, I look at all the Beatles radio shows and podcast shows as us being all one community. So we're all feeling here. And we all just want to send our condolences to Ryan Brady's family, to Chris Mercer, and also to all the fans of that show. And Kit, I know that you were a guest on one of those episodes. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, back in 2018, I was a guest. We discussed chaos and creation, and of course, Ryan was in LA, so I didn't get to meet him personally. Chris he teaches at Northwestern University in Evanston, so I did meet him. We were together in the same room. But Ryan, as you said, was a passionate fan. Very, funny, really nice, couldn't have been more welcoming. It was just, pleasure being on that show, just with talking Paul McCartney with two, just students of his music, and Ryan just, was knowledgeable, funny, very sweet, and I'm just stunned. I'm absolutely stunned. He will definitely be missed by the Beatles community, the podcasting community, and as you said, send all my best wishes to his family, his friends, and all the fans of the show. He'll definitely be missed.
I've heard nothing but very positive things about that show because they take you through every album of Paul's solo career.
Yep,
So,
track by track. Yeah.
So if you want to go that deep into it, there's that show. Of course, there's Tom's show, but and there's our show too. But obviously, our condolences to everyone involved here with Ryan Brady and everyone involved with the show and their fans.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so before we talk about John Lennon and our remembrances of him in December 8th, I just wanted to point out this particular book, which came out recently for the Plastic Ono Band. And we also know that the box set for the Plastic Ono Band will be coming out next year. Don't know the exact date yet. This is a wonderful, wonderful companion piece, much like the Imagine book was a couple years ago. And don't be misled into thinking this is about the album. It's about everything connected
Right.
with the Plastic Ono Band.
Yep.
The whole concept of it, which was started by Yoko. And she just said that this should be something where it could be anything you want it to be. It could be just instruments on stage. It can have a revolving lineup of musicians that could always change. If you're singing on the record, you know, if you're listening to the record and you're singing along with it, you are part of the Plastic Ono Band.
Right.
It's a conceptual thing that Yoko came up with. They talk about that in this book. They bring up all the singles that led to the Plastic Ono Band album. So you've got Give Peace a Chance in there. You've got Cold Turkey and Instant Karma. You've also got the Live Peace in Toronto album as well. For every single song that is covered in this book, you've got interview clips from John and Yoko and from musicians that were on all the songs. And it's wonderful. This not only is a wonderful coffee table book right here, if you just want to look at the pictures, but it could also be a fantastic reference book,
Absolutely.
a resource book. Anytime you want to hear something about a particular song, I could use this on my radio show, read what John said about Instant Karma, whatever. It's just fantastic.
And it really leads up. What I liked about it too was how it, you know, tells you the story of what led to the Plastic Ono Band. I mean, about the bed-in and so
Right.
forth. I mean, that was a nice surprise that it wasn't, as you said, just about the album. That
Right.
it really give you the context of it. So
And it's more or less the same size book as the
It's
Imagine book,
perfect.
right?
Oh,
Thomas?
Mr.
Looks great on that
Continuity.
shelf, buddy. Looks great on the shelf,
I'm
right
with
next
you.
to the Imagine
I'm
book.
with you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks
Uniformity.
so
We're all
much to you
about
guys.
consistency.
Uniformity, man. But you know, to be honest with you guys, I am kind of shocked that it came out before the actual box set. I mean, as we know, the Get Back book was pushed to probably come out this around the same time as the film and the DVD, Blu-ray, and whatnot. So I was kind of shocked that this came out so early, or it wasn't pushed back. So, but however, it is kind of cool because now we have the music to look forward to even more, because we've got a lot of the information in here, like Ken said, you know, talking about track by track by track, and then we can get the story, you know, behind a lot of these songs before we get the music. So we'll be ready for the music by the time, you know, it gets here.
Yeah, it really is as thorough a book as you
Yeah.
can
Absolutely.
imagine, no pun intended. But you know, just like the Imagine book and even the Give Me Some Truth book, it's a similar format in the sense that they go through each song and there's quotes in there from John, Yoko,
Right.
participants. And even if they don't have exact information pertaining to a song, then they have quotes from John and Yoko at that time to fill up the space. There's so many interesting interview clips all throughout this book, and fantastic photos, some of which you've seen before, plenty of them you haven't. I wanted to just point out a few here, see if you can see this on the screen.
Yeah, I like that one a
Never
lot.
saw that one.
Yeah.
Color photo of John and Yoko. And I should also say, it's nice to have quotes from people like, in the case of Live Peace in Toronto, there's quotes from Mal Evans. When do you ever see Mal Evans with quotes from him? They call this manifestos for the Plastic Ono Band. You really can't read it all. One's from Yoko, the other's from John, with those illustrations from John as to what the Plastic Ono Band's supposed to be. It says the band is plastic. It must be the loudest band on earth. You know, stuff like that. Beautiful photo here from the bed-in in Montreal. John, Yoko, and in front, Tommy Smothers. You know, a poster you might not have seen before from Live Peace in Toronto, what it looked like. I'm just trying to highlight some of the things that you might never have seen before. This I treasure. There's some illustrations in here from Klaus Vormann.
Yes.
We all know what a wonderful artist he
Yes.
is.
Is that the one in the plane?
Yes.
Yes.
There's actually two
wonderful.
here.
Right.
This is on the plane to Toronto. members of the band there. And this right here is backstage at Varsity Stadium where the concert took place.
Nice.
Isn't that great?
That's
Towards the end of the
wonderful.
book, there's another illustration from Klaus of the band recording during the Plastic Ono Band album. This is a photo of the band poolside right after Live Piece in Toronto. The next day, they hung out at the promoter's house.
Yeah, that's a nice picture. I still remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see Alan White there,
Look at that.
Klaus Foreman standing up, Eric Clapton sitting down. You know, there's a lot of great photos all throughout. And, you know, I could spend a whole hour on this book, but we have a lot more to get to here on this show. But I would like to just add that I'm so grateful to Yoko that she's putting this out. Because one thing that, you know, I've learned about her, and this is certainly witnessed from the Imagine book as well, she must be some archivist. I mean, she must have saved everything. She had a sense for the historical value of this later on. So many documents, photos, you know, there are notes that John sent to friends of his when he read the Primal Scream book from Arthur Janoff. He sent off copies of the book with notes to friends like Pete Townsend and Eric Clapton in there, and they're in the book. It's like everything is saved. And, you know, we're so much better for this because of, you know, the fact that Yoko saved all this stuff.
Al, there's a shout out to you from Steve Sanderson saying the Let It Be book featuring Al is awesome, which it is, of course.
which we'll plug later.
Yes, indeed. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, there's also
which is, by the way, Bruce Spizer's book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is, but it does indeed feature Al.
Yes.
Yep. You're featured in all of Bruce's books.
Yeah.
Right?
At least the album series books, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. I should also point out that there's lots of childhood photos of John and of Yoko in the book as well.
Yes.
You can see Yoko's parents, their wedding photo, you know, if you're interested in that. There's so much to appreciate in this book, and I highly recommend picking it up. And by the way, plug, on my website, starting Thursday, special contest to win that book. I only have one copy. If you want to win it, go to the website, kenmichaelsradio.com. Okay?
Yes.
So, for the rest of the night, let's talk about
And
John
we have
Lennon,
all
as we
our
know.
people ready to go if they have any comments or questions.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
viewers.
If you'd like to share your memories of John, whether what he meant to you, what you know, your memories of him, please share them in the comments, and we will get to as many as we can throughout the show.
Long-time viewers and first-time viewers.
Exactly. Yep. And yes, I also want to give a shout out to someone who's joining us for the first time tonight live, Dara Roberts. So see, Dara, I told you I would give you a shout out tonight, and I did. So
All
Dara.
right.
Hi, Dara.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Instant karma, baby. You're a
That's
star
right.
now.
Yeah.
That's right.
So as you know, we are coming close to that awful night of December 8th and the anniversary of that. The horror of that still stays with so many of us. And so I thought that I would find out from each of you what your memories are of that particular night. And Al, why don't you lead things off?
Okay. Back in those days, I was working at a record store on Fifth Avenue in New York called the Record Hunter. And like a lot of stores on Fifth Avenue in those days, we weren't open at night. We closed at 6:30.
Oh, wow.
And this was the night of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting. So I decided to go on up there since it was only about 8 blocks away. So went up there, and of course, and in those days the tree lighting was a half-hour show. It wasn't this 2-hour plug-a-thon that it is now. It was basically a couple of songs. Mayor Koch presses the button, light the tree. 8 o'clock, boom, you're out. And so I I was supposed to meet a couple of friends there. We didn't really make connections. I stopped in the Sam Goody and Rockefeller Center, weren't there, so I just backtracked to the Port Authority bus terminal and back home to New Jersey. And after I got home, I got on the phone with a friend who. At that point, Bruce Springsteen was playing a series of shows at the old Spectrum in Philadelphia. And my friend had seen him on Friday night, so we were talking about the show, and this is toward 11:30, and we were just about to wrap up our conversation, and his mother is trying to get his attention. Turned out she was watching the nightly MASH rerun on Channel 5 in New York, and at 11:25, the sports maven Bill Mazer would always have like a sports wrap up, but during it, he got this bulletin saying that a man identified as John Lennon had been shot and had been taken to Roosevelt Hospital. So we quickly wrapped up, and I dived for the radio and put on WNEW-FM in New York, and the fellow who was doing the nighttime show in those days was a fellow named Vince Gelsa, sure. whose name came up, in fact, on the last things we said today, since he worked with Darren, Darren Vivo, and I probably had only tuned in for about a minute when. Well, if you go to YouTube, you can find it there. He received the bulletin that John had been declared dead, and I turned into, as Archie Bunker would say, I turned into a meathead, dead from the neck up. I was just basically going on autopilot. For some reason, I called down to the Beatlefan down in Georgia, as if because I was the New York correspondent. So, and it was as if I didn't realize that the whole world was, had gotten the word. Right. So I just left a message, which I think Leslie King may still have. I'm not sure. Yeah. And then the next couple of hours, basically, like I said, I was on autopilot, and I was just going up and down the radio dial. And I can recall somebody at WABC went into their archives and took out the old WA Beatles C jingles, and I think had to be maybe around 3:00. I'd gone back to WNEW-FM, and the fellow who's the all-night personality, Tom Herrera, played Jackson Browne's "For a Dancer," and the second verse. I don't know what happens when people die, and that is when it hit me, and I ended up crying myself to sleep. Which was probably only about half hour of sleep, but still. But that's how I got the news.
Most of us can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were they playing like Beatles and Lennon music throughout the night?
Yeah, pretty much. Most of the stations were playing either Beatles. The one song that I kept hearing more than any other was "Watching the Wheels." Which considering that the album had only been out like 2 weeks, right? To keep going back to that one song, I guess, thinking, here he comes out after 5 years and this happens.
And I remember hearing a lot of solo John tracks that you'd never hear on the radio.
Sure.
And, of course, the cynical side of me saying, this is what it takes for them to play it, but they were playing everything, as I remember.
Tom, how about you?
Yeah, well, as being 7 years old when that happened, and and my life centering around, Star Wars at that point in time in my life, it didn't really compute with me. Growing up in Michigan, my mom and dad were huge Motown fans. The Beatles and solo Beatles weren't really on their radar. So it was something that, I had learned, down the line, unfortunately. So it didn't have that, impact on me, as it did with Al and probably, you Ken and Joe, unfortunately. But I do recall older family members talking about it. I do recall I had, football fans in my family, and I remember them talking about it on the Monday Night Football, I believe it was, right?
Howard Cosell.
With Howard Cosell, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's my kind of memory of it, is listening to other people discuss it, and not really understanding who John Lennon was, or or that he was in a band called the Beatles, so it was just more or less, hearing it word of mouth, really.
For several days it was wall-to-wall coverage. Like
I
there was
imagine.
nothing else on the news. So you must have been
Right.
wondering, why is this story so important?
Right.
As a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
But what year did you first get into the Beatles?
It was, I believe, 85, 86 is when I started, getting into, the Beatles music. Now I knew about Paul's music, in the early 80s. And then, starting to get, aware of John Lennon from, the singles. I believe it was like Nobody Told Me was really my big introduction to John's solo career. And,
Okay.
that's when I was introduced. So yeah, it was about 85, 86. And then, I'll tell them some more, a bit about that once we get into, our other aspect of the show. So.
Okay. Kit?
Yeah, I mean, a bit like Tom. I was 8, and I, wasn't into the Beatles yet. That wasn't until about 1985, probably, is when I started getting into them. And so I remember, I think there may have even been, I think I was watching TV, and there may have even been like a crawler at the bottom of the screen, that the news that John Lennon had been killed. I think there was. I'm not 100% sure. I somehow have a vague memory of that. And we were talking about it before we went on air, that probably then I almost saw the Beatles as Paul's band. I mean, because Paul was so still so big at the time, and John, as you said, had just started making his comeback, and I was more familiar with Paul's, with Paul McCartney. But I definitely, I do remember seeing the news reports, probably sitting watching the news with my parents or something, seeing all the footage of people, gathering in Central Park, and and the vigils. And I mean, I do remember that. But it obviously didn't have the same impact on me as it did, like, you, Al, or Joe, or Ken. But yeah, we'll get into this in just a little bit. But yeah, a few years later, when about 5 years later, when I then started getting into the Beatles, and then of course, it hit me. I just thought, oh, I can't believe
Right.
I missed it. I mean, I missed, experiencing his music
Exactly.
when he was alive. I mean,
Right.
just such a huge letdown and disappointment. So yeah, so Tom and I obviously have a different perspective on it, but I kind of remember it. I remember those scenes of people at in Central Park around the Dakota. I do remember
Sure.
those scenes on the news, but it didn't hit me as much as obviously it does now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really something. As I pointed out before, it's kind of like a different experience when you've grown up with these artists as they put out their music, as opposed to discovering them later. And you can discover their music in any order you want to.
Right.
There's so much music there to get into. You could bounce around from the Beatle days to the solo music to different decades, and you hear the music differently.
Yep.
if you do that.
Exactly.
Joe?
Well, I had been heavily into the Beatles, I guess, around 75, 76 is when I started. But more importantly, for this topic, I had gotten it to be a real John Lennon freak around, I want to say 77 or something like that. And when I heard Plastic Ono Band, I was really blown away. But we'll get to more of that later. But I was into John just at the time he was retired. So my big dream was for him to come out of retirement, and which he did, and that was a big thrill. Then only a few weeks after of Double Fantasy, of course, there was that fateful night, and I had just graduated high school. I was 18,
Hmm.
graduated that June, and I went right to work. So
Of
that's
80?
of 80. I started
Okay.
a job in September, a printing job, and I was on probation for a while. I mean, you don't want
Yeah.
to call in sick or anything like that.
Right.
And it was my mother's 40th birthday, December 8th,
Oh,
that night. So,
Wow.
I mean, this was long after it was, almost, 10 minutes to 11 or something. I was getting ready for bed. I was, sitting down in the dark, taking my shoes off on whatever, and the phone rang. It's weird when you get a phone call late like that. And it was my now departed friend, my best friend, Mike, who's passed. And he had this weird sense of humor. It's dumb teenagers do. He would say like, in the past, he might have said like, "Oh, so and so had a heart attack." I'm just kidding. Stupid kid stuff. And
hmm,
when he told me this news, I thought it was one of his jokes. He said John's been shot, and I didn't believe him. He convinced me quickly enough. Told me turn on the TV, and I think I saw Chuck Scarborough on the News 4.
right.
And at that time, they didn't know he was tentatively identified as John Lennon. They weren't sure it was John Lennon, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of was like hanging by a thread, both of us kind of on the phone. But I was also this crazy, collector, which I still am, in case you haven't noticed. But I used to record everything on audio tape. So I'm used to recording things like news items or interviews. So I'm like, why would I record? But yet you don't know what else to do. You're doing your usual
Right.
routine, capturing history, and I'm like under the worst circumstances. So as I'm fiddling around, I'm hearing updates, and I'm listening to WPLJ, and I'm hearing, he was shot, and first then it was John, and then you hear, you don't know the extent of it. We're thinking, well, maybe it was just a flesh wound. Then you
Oh,
hear it was
yeah.
several times in the back, in the chest, or however they really like made it sound horrific. And I was like, oh, that's it. I was like so, upset. And as I'm fiddling around, I have on tape the original recording from some news station. You could tell by the guy's voice, he was like, where John Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono had a permanent residence.
Hmm,
Repeating, former Beatle John Lennon was shot and killed. Adding the finality of it. And I still get
Yeah.
shivers. And I have that
Sure.
tape. I don't play it, maybe once or something, very often. But that's how I found out, and it was surreal. I mean, like Al said, and then the radio and the news and playing songs and all night. I didn't get any sleep, and I had to go to work the next
Yeah.
day.
Me too.
yeah.
And I didn't get any sleep, but I was taking the bus then. I didn't have a car or anything, so I'm on the bus, and you could just tell everybody knows it.
Yeah.
As this, it was still dark in the morning, whatever time it was, and I was getting the bus 6:30 a.m. And you could see the stack of newspapers, the Daily News, New York Daily News, and there it is, still
Yep.
bundled up in front of the store. And you read, surreal. You don't believe this is a real thing.
I know.
How could this be?
Exactly.
And for me crying and breaking down, I remember that took. I don't know why. I ran this scenario over in my head for a month. It was January 11th of '81. I remember the date. I was looking at a calendar, and I heard the song Intuition. I was playing Intuition that day. For whatever reason, hearing John with the la-di-da positive approach on life, I try to make the game of life better each and every day. And I just,
Hmm,
it took me that
Yeah.
long for the floodgates to open. And that was it. And also the following morning, again, the collector part, you're like a zombie. I'm going to these stores, newsstands, and buying magazines. I used to buy celebratory magazines. Now I'm buying, overnight, all these the newspapers and things
Yeah.
just to put into a box or something, and I'm like, this is
Yeah.
not right. And
Hmm.
that's how it was for me.
Yeah, it's funny, Al, you were talking about Vince Scelsa. I can hear his voice right now making the announcement
Exactly.
and
Yep.
how shaky his voice was. And he said,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone who was on the radio could have handled that
Oh,
situation,
I would imagine.
or
Yeah,
television. Those
right.
are the worst moments to ever
Mm.
be on the air. I don't know how I could have ever handled it
Yeah, I
if
know
I was
Jimmy
in that
Fink. I heard
situation.
Jimmy. I remember Jimmy Fink. He was talking about. He had to talk about it.
Yeah. And Jimmy's a huge fan.
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, kind of like you, Al, I worked at a record store at that time, Record World, which was, a very successful chain. And I worked at Roosevelt Field in Long Island, which I'm told was like their busiest store in the entire of all the stores they had. Um, and as you know, as you get closer and closer to Christmas, the sales pick up and there's more to
Yep.
clean up. And
Mhm.
we closed at 9:30, but with every passing day, we had to stay later and later to clean up the store to get it ready for the next day. And I
Can I
must have
ask?
stayed. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but can I ask how old you were at that point? At that time?
So I would have been 21.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I'm sure it was way past 11 o'clock when I left the store.
Mm.
And I went into the parking lot and I turned the car on. And I heard a Beatles song being played on the radio, and the disc jockey came out of it saying, "We're sorry to give you the news that John Lennon has been shot." Immediately, I think, shot in the arm, you know,
Yeah.
anything but the worst.
Exactly.
But then
Yep.
he said, "John Lennon is dead." And I couldn't believe this. And so I thought, if this is true, every radio station is going to be announcing this. So I turned to another radio station and they were playing Got to Get You Into My Life, but it was Earth, Wind and Fire's version.
Mm.
And
Huh?
the disc jockey came out of that and he said, in case you haven't heard the sad news, John Lennon has been shot and he's dead. And for the rest of the night, we're going to be playing Beatles and solo John Lennon music. And so I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was there in the parking lot. And to this day, I still don't know how I was able to drive home knowing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in a daze and I think I was in denial of it all. I thought in part, this is kind of like the Paul is dead rumor. Somebody's playing a joke here.
Yeah.
As sick as that sounds, that's how my mind was thinking. You don't think rationally. And I
Well, you
went
don't want to
home.
believe it.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
I came home. I was still living with my parents. They were in the living room at the time, waiting up for me because they had heard the news. The TV was on in the living room, and as soon as I'm coming in, I'm looking right at the TV with all the coverage. And my father just said to me, "I imagine this is not a very good time for you." No, it wasn't. What do you say at a moment
Sure.
like that? So I just went to my bedroom and I listened to the radio all night.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of rock stations like WNEW FM in New York, WBAB on Long Island, very big rock station there. And they were not only playing John Lennon music, but they were taking live calls throughout the night for people
Yeah.
to just voice whatever
Uh,
they were feeling.
right. Right.
And I knew there was no way on earth I was going to get any sleep that night. So I was lying in my bed with the lights off and just listening. And one person said something on the air, which I'll always remember, which is that the saddest thing about John's death is that we'll never have a Beatles reunion.
No.
Yeah.
And having lived through all the solo music and seeing all
Mm.
the success that they had, and really, appreciating them for being great artists in their own right, all of them, this is what pops into someone's head first.
Right.
It really
Yeah.
upset me a lot. It was like John died twice.
Mm.
Mm.
And so that's just something that will always stick out in my memory about that night. I don't think of John as strictly a Beatle. He had another
Right.
career. He also had a life with Yoko and Sean. He was a father to Julian. I thought about all those things. I didn't just think of him
Right.
strictly as a Beatle.
John
And
the
you-
Man.
Yeah. And you know,
Yeah.
Ken,
Yeah.
that person probably wasn't the only one that thought that either.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
I heard,
I'm
I heard a
sure.
lot of that.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that
No.
up too later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, and then somehow I was able to go to college the next day, and the few classes that I had, I was a communications major. The teachers really didn't run a class. They just said, if you want to talk, we're here. And
Wow.
we all just talked about John Lennon. Some of the students were too young or weren't really affected by John or the Beatles. Some of them had a lot to say.
All right.
We didn't really have classes that day. We just showed up and left. I dressed in black that day, you know, out of respect. I don't know
And
if
he's
it
in
even
black.
mattered.
There you go.
I thought of that.
But yeah, that's what I remember about that night. You know, it's true. There's nothing like something that has impacted your life that you can remember it like it happened yesterday. Just like, you know, you talked about Al seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, you know, those kind of
Right.
things. Even though we know how long ago it was, it sure doesn't seem like it. And
Yeah.
or like my parents can remember President Kennedy being shot like it happened yesterday.
Of course. Yeah.
And my
Interesting
wife
you
remembers that kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that. Dara actually made a very interesting comment here. She said, my father, Wayne, is watching with me. He said he was watching the news on TV and it felt like someone had stabbed him in the heart. It made him think about what happened to JFK, MLK Jr., and Bobby
Right.
Kennedy.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that
Yeah.
hadn't been that long ago. You know, that had
No.
only been, you know, the Kennedy assassination had only been like 17 years before.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm not a football fan because
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted Howard Cosell informing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true.
right. They have him break the news. Yeah.
Not only that, but around that time, I think it was 1980 when CNN debuted.
Yes.
And so to have a 24/7 news channel and to go all through the day with nonstop nothing but John Lennon. We saw that later on with something like Princess Diana when she died,
Yeah.
but with John, it was the same thing. So, you know, I'm sure there were a lot of John fans and Beatle fans that were glued to a channel like CNN, just wanted to get any more news they could,
Yeah, in the
as
days that
depressing as
followed,
it
right?
was.
The whole
Yeah.
week it seemed like there was nothing but John on stuff on John all the time, of us for straight for a
I would
week or
hope
something.
so. I mean,
You
even though
know,
as sad as it is, you know, I think he's an important figure to warrant something like that, to continue with the, you know, with the radio shows
yeah.
or the TV spots, you know, to
Well, the world seemed a lot. I don't know if you guys older guys would agree, but a lot smaller then, and there wasn't all that
Oh, absolutely.
24-hour cable, and
Mm.
it, it it was just all about John, And I remember thinking to myself too, because I had to do this new job that I was talking about. I couldn't get to the city, to the Dakota. I wanted to share my grief there at the Dakota, and I couldn't even think about getting there till Friday night. And I had been wondering, I wonder if there's still going to be a gathering there. And they were there
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and
Mm.
so on.
Right. Right
Al, I
through
wanted
the
to.
vigil on Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Al, I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned about Beetlefan,
Yes.
about that issue that
Right.
then you had to put out. Tell us a little bit about that, what that
That
looks like.
that was going to be Beatlefan's second anniversary issue. The first issue had been at the end of 1978, and basically Bill had the issue pretty much almost ready to go. And then after this, and of course Bill is a professional journalist. He was at that point he was still a music and entertainment critic for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and after he got the news and then went into the paper and filed a story, he realized that there was no way that we could put out the issue as is. So basically, he sent this is. The technology of 1980. He sent basically like a wire to all of the, other than me, because I had already called with that tape, so we knew that I had already volunteered to do something. And but he sent messages to everybody, all of the regular contributors, basically soliciting whatever we wanted to do. And so I, like that Wednesday morning, I sat down at my my acoustic typewriter, which is what I was using in those days, and did a piece, and Ollie Pedrazik did a piece, and within basically 2 weeks, Bill had assembled what became known as the John Lennon Commemorative issue, and it came back from the printer, I think December 21st, and he put it in the mail right away. So basically before the year was up, so within like 3 weeks of John's murder, the issue was in the hands of the subscribers.
So,
Wow.
so you just changed that. So that anniversary issue, it wasn't an option to put out two, the anniversary issue and then the John Lennon one. It had to be that one, just that one issue then.
Right. There was some material that was, already all ready to go, basically like reviews of Double Fantasy and a couple of other things. But it was basically the core of the issue was basically just taken apart.
Gotcha.
And some of the elements did appear in the next issue in February.
Okay.
But the core of it was all freshly done material by the contributors.
Wow.
And was that issue all about his death, or was there anything retrospective, or looking at his time in the Beatles or solo career, any part like that?
Bill did in is what we know as the Beatle News Roundup. He basically did all of the the facts and figures and a lot of the biographical information, although obviously with a magazine like that, we pretty much assumed that anybody reading Beatlefan knew the biography.
Right.
So it was primarily either the facts and figures of the event itself and that week following it, and then perspectives from, as I said, from me, from Wally Pedrazik, and some of the other contributors whose names I'm blanking out on at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, when it comes to John Lennon, there's so many things you could talk about. And I wanted to break things down between the music and the man. But as you know, John's music was so highly personal. It's all intertwined, So what I'd like to get from each of you is how you best remember John, what you admire most about the man. And I realize that's a loaded question. Take as much time as you want. Al, would you like to start?
Okay, I may as well, because I've been thinking about this. As it turns out, a couple of months after John's murder, we had the first, I guess it was really the first mass gathering of fans since the vigil, which was the Beetle Fest, and what I've always called the therapy fest, because people were embracing and breaking down, in the halls, and it was rough, but it was something that we really needed. And Mark Lapidus had decided to put out a booklet of remembrances from fans, either poetry or whatever they wanted to do, and I was one of the first people that he asked to contribute. And what the point of what I wrote was that I consider, and I still do, consider John Lennon to be the single most fascinating figure in the entire history of rock and roll. He was never dull. He was always always fascinating. He was so complex. He was like an onion that you had to kind of peel away all the different dimensions. Of course, in those days, we thought that he was, scrupulously honest about everything. And, we've learned that, that he and Yoko kind of created myths about things. But still, for the most part, he was usually pretty frank. There were times when it seemed as if he would say things almost for the shock value of what they would look like in the newspapers. But he admitted himself that he would say things and then realize, like 2 hours later, that why did I just say that? That kind of thing. But he was, as I said, he was just, and I thought of this recently because I've been reading or through Audible, listening to several of the autobios by music artists, Pete Townsend, Howard Kaylan, Graham Nash. And, you listen to them and it's all, sex and drugs and rock and roll, right. And which is fine, but it's even somebody like Pete Townsend, who you think would be a lot more interesting, doesn't really turn out to be, at least, through the pages of that book, to be all that interesting. But John always was. He was, as I said, he was just never dull, always fascinating, and musically, he had, I think, one of the 5 best rock and roll voices ever.
Yep. Yeah. Boy, that was concise.
Yeah.
You can't get me to do that.
Yeah, really?
Wow.
Teach me how to do that.
Give me a clock.
Kit, you're next.
Well, I think there are 2 things that I've always connected to with him and admired about him. First of all, I really admire how he took chances musically and personally, and on the whole, really didn't give a rip what people thought. He really didn't. And I mean, that takes a lot of courage. And really, well, particularly when he was with the Beatles, but certainly solo as well. He would, I mean, something like A Strawberry Fields Forever or Tomorrow Never Knows. I mean, those were just, songs that probably the fact that, like Paul, is that he couldn't read music was a good thing, because he would come up with these, incredible ideas. I want to sound like I'm chanting from a mountaintop, and I wanted to, things like that. And I'm sure that George Martin and others said, what, and he would say, why not? And, I think that's how he lived. It was, why not? And, who would do a song like Cold Turkey and put themselves out there like that?
Right.
And I mean, really just, well, he really did strip himself bare, but well, that's a whole other thing. But
and he's very shy.
Yeah, very shy. But I mean, that was a song that I don't know anyone. I don't know who would have the guts to put out a song like that, and and not only reveal himself personally, but to to go against the grain like that. I mean, I can't think of any other song from '69 that sounded like that.
Sure.
But again, he just put it out there, and if he didn't like it, too bad. And I just really admire that he tried different things and certainly didn't follow the rules. Of course, when he and Yoko would do their various art happenings, whether it was the bed-in, whether it was bagism, with different things, and they were willing to, I mean, he said we were willing to be the world's clowns, to do things. I mean, as I said, that takes, a lot of guts. So that's one thing I really admire, his willingness to take chances. And the other thing is, his honesty. And kind of like you were saying, Al, his willingness to really reveal himself in his music, but not only honesty about himself, but he was able to speak directly to you. I mean, that's when I first got into his solo stuff. I mean, I remember listening to the Imagine album and listening. I don't know why this song in particular, but Crippled Inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Bingo.
one.
When I heard the lyrics to that, for some reason, I heard that and I just thought, he nailed it. I mean, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Right.
That you can look wonderful, you can do all these things and look beautiful on the outside and surround yourself, with material things, but one thing you can't hide is when you're crippled inside. And I just
Right.
remember thinking, I know what he's talking about. And there are so many other times in his songs where I've thought, I either I understand it, I felt that, and so he really has that ability to not only to describe himself and reveal himself, but he's able to do it in a way that you can relate to it, and almost like he's talking to you.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing that I think he was a really gifted songwriter in that sense too. And so I really, and in fact, Tony DeMeo in the comments here said he was like me, and I think that kind of nails what I'm saying. That he's kind of like you. That's how he wrote his song. So those are the two things that willing to take chances and honesty, and those are the two qualities that I think were really unique to him.
And it draws a lot of fans to him.
Absolutely.
It makes them admire him so much more for that.
Yep.
How about Tom?
Thank you, Ken. Well, as a teenager getting into, the Beatles, roughly 85, 86, 87 area, and having some, rebellious kind of, thoughts, going in my mind, that's one of the aspects that, I gravitated towards John pretty much right off the bat, especially his music of the Beatles and his songs specifically because of what, the kind of like the almost a little bit of the ragged edge or the, the toughness of Lennon, with songs like, You Can't Do That and Slow Down and Bad Boy and, Run for Your Life, stuff like that. So for me, Lennon was really, he was my go-to guy. He was kind of like my idol at that time, whereas there was a lot of bad boys out there at that point, like, Motley Crue, Kiss, Guns N' Roses, all that stuff. I mean, that stuff I appreciated later, but it was right. Yeah, right. Exactly. But it was like really Lennon that almost the original bad boy that in a way that which, I gravitated towards. But not only that, but then, you find out that he's also got a soft side to him, and then you discover songs like Yes It Is and Baby It's You and If I Fell and stuff like that. And you realize, I mean, okay, there's more to the guy than just the toughness, kind of like Al was saying, with the whole onion thing, there's multi layers, of John. And that's again another thing, that reason why I fell in love with John. And I gotta tell you, and then at the height of it, in 1988, we get this, and I was, I was like one of only two people in the theater, getting,
Really?
getting to watch, Imagine John Lennon. And I'm like, I'm in heaven. But, but that, like, I had so many nights, lying in bed with the headphones on, wishing that I could, had, Al's experience, seeing him on television and just seeing that whole, that whole progression. But it was watching the movie where I finally realized, okay, I'm not going to have that, that's gone. and that's when it kind of hit me, and I kind of got a little emotional watching that movie, because I realized I'm not going to get this. This is my Beatlemania right here. This and the complete Beatles were really my what I had to go to to get my John Lennon fix, really. And then from getting the CD, the soundtrack to Imagine John Lennon, then I finally got more into some of his solo stuff. And I was I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was the lyrics of what, but Jealous Guy on here just touched me so personally, on a personal level, because it's like Kit said, the honesty of John. I mean, I didn't read anything on John Lennon, but I didn't have to, because I had his music, I had his lyrics, and that's how I got to know John Lennon. Really was from his lyrics, and then that's how I really come to appreciate him. The stuff like how can we move forward? I mean, that stuff is just not too many people can get as deep as that.
That was one of my favorite songs
Yeah,
from him ever.
and
Definitely.
yeah, and then even deeper with God and Mother, and he's just letting his soul out to you for everybody to read or listen to, or however you want to interpret it. It's just really, when I think back at it now, how I'm really grateful that I had this when I did, because I could have gone in all kinds of different directions with music, but because there was so much at that point in time, but this was discovering the Beatles, and then really discovering Lennon, at that point in time, I think was a pretty powerful time in my life, and I'm very grateful for that.
Wow, well said. Very good, Tom.
Yeah.
Joe?
What can I possibly say? Everyone stole my thunder. No, it's all a lot of the same, really. And for people have said in the comments too. I mean, I love John's wit and his
Yeah, there
sense
you
of
go.
humor.
Yeah.
It's
That's another
something,
aspect of it. Yeah.
biting wit and sense of humor. But I liked his openness, candidness, frankness. Said whatever he wanted and didn't give a damn, pretty much, till maybe afterward, and then regret it. uh, Honesty, but as Al had also said, not as honest as we always thought all the time, but certainly more than most rockers out there. I think
Yes.
when Al said that he was like the most fascinating, or I don't know if I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exact words, interesting person. I mean, you could have a movie about John Lennon, and it would be very captivating. As I don't know so much about that captivating as much as the other Beatles or uh, other artists. But when I was 15 is when I really was getting into John, and that was like listening to the Imagine album, and the first time I had ever heard Plastic Ono Band. When I always tell that story to people about the I was listening in a front porch at night, which was my bedroom where I lived at the time, in a front porch, and you just had through the windows you had the stars and the trees, and it's dark, but I still was able to see pretty well at night then. So I had the lyric sheet, and I'm reading every song, the lyrics along with John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, and I'm like floored by every line, every emotion, how brutally honest this guy was in exposing his soul to everybody, feeling like a lot of it I could relate to, which we've said. Uh, I think it was Tony in the comments who said he's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's talking to me. He knows
Yeah.
me. That's
Right.
me. I could have wrote this. I could not everything. I mean, at the time, at that age, 15, 16, 17, John Lennon was like my hero in that regard. Now I could think of, no offense to John, but better hero choices maybe. But at the time, that's what I needed. I guess to deal with whatever normal teenage angst I was experiencing, or problems in school with your parents, or I was a child of divorce and my father, wasn't around, and all of that, and listening to the song Mother, and
Yeah.
that, Father, you left me, all this. It was very emotional, and that's what I missed the most. I think we were robbed so much, by John's not being here, of what could have been, what stuff he could have been talking about. Interviews always
Right.
interesting,
Yeah.
always fascinating, never dull, as Al said. There's not many of them out there as we'd like to see interview wise with John, but boy, always entertaining, Always great to listen to him. And yeah, without him around, it's just it's never been the same for me. And I'm sure I speak for a lot of people
Right.
over the decades. I think I might have even been a different person than I am. I don't know. I lost a part of me in a way.
We all
Well,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
like you
think
said, Ken, and a lot of people, and I understand, sure, there's a little part of me too that says, oh, I guess the Beatles will never get back together again. Yeah, that's a little factor too, but I just miss the man, the guy, the
Right.
Right.
I
personality.
think you and Tony touched on
And
something where he's singing about you in a way because there's so many songs in his catalog where you can identify with, whether
Right.
it's
Yeah,
Mama Don't Go, Daddy Come Home. I mean, just so many
yeah.
on a personal level that you can connect with and feel that emotion with because you experienced something like that as well.
When they've tortured and scared you for 20
Yeah,
odd years, then they
Mm,
expect
yeah,
you to pick a career. I mean, things
yeah,
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
That's where, I was a teenager at the time and all this
yeah,
kind of you can't really function. You're so full of fear.
yeah.
That's why I say, and what, I always refrain from getting into a comparison thing, but whereas I love, like Paul's music, I just want to say, you know, nobody to me is as great a songwriter as Paul McCartney. Uh, but I do miss a lot of that more deep, introspective John
Depth.
stuff a lot of the time.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
And you were saying about that there should be a movie about him, and actually there have been a
Oh yeah,
few,
right.
and the problem is not at least the portrayal of John in most of
right.
them. None of them have been very good,
No,
and I think it's because the real thing, the real man himself,
right.
was so magnetic. I mean, look at A Hard Day's Night, and you cannot take your eyes off him,
Yep.
Yeah, this is true.
Agreed.
Al. I
you know.
mean, that movie, like John and Yoko, a love story, that
Yeah.
that
Ugh.
left a lot to be
Oh,
desired. But I thought Ian Hart in the Backbeat movie
yeah.
struck
Yeah.
me as a
Yeah.
young Hamburg John.
Hmm.
He was
Yeah.
believable.
I
That
kind of
came
believed he could be
closest.
John
Yeah.
at that age and at that point in his life. Maybe not later, maybe, but
But
Yeah, I think
it's very difficult to make a movie on John because he was such a complicated person.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
You
too.
can't
Yeah.
cover it all in 2 hours.
no,
No.
You
Yeah.
need
it had
to
to be a
really
mini
study
series.
him. Yeah.
but Al, I think we've talked about that before. That yeah, that there's just there hasn't been a movie that has any except maybe Backbeat. That's maybe
Yeah.
closest that has really captured John. I mean,
You need
there's
a
because
Yeah.
really talented actor that specializes in emotions, or someone that can have that eruptive type, meanness or
Mhm.
attitude to him, but then be nice and gentle and soft as well.
Mm.
And it's so rare to find in an
Like I
actor.
like that movie Nowhere Boy. I didn't buy that. I don't know the actor's name.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
didn't
Mhm.
buy him as a young John at all. What did you think of? I forget his name. Also in Birth of the Beatles, I thought he had a little of John's nastiness. I can't remember the
Oh
actor's
yeah.
name now. Birth of the Beatles, the TV thing.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
can't remember, but yeah, but he was a complex individual, as we all are, but
Mm.
he in particular,
Yeah.
yeah, was and just yeah, really, it's just so hard to
Right.
really
Yeah,
accurately portray him.
very interesting person. Multifaceted,
Yep.
uh, fascinating.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have talked about his lyrics and how they can touch you. And there are certain lines from his songs that stand out so much that we can all relate to. And it's an amazing thing. Some of the lines are so simple, and yet he's able to write them in a song and affect you and really grip you in a way where you might think, oh, it's so easy to do this. Not everybody can write a song like Mother,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the line, I couldn't walk and I tried to run.
Hmm.
I'm only now appreciating that line, what that means. That's so deep,
Right.
Yep.
and I've always talked about
Hmm.
how can I go
Yeah.
forward when I
Right.
don't know which way I'm
Yeah,
facing?
that's a great line.
And
That's a
something
How,
really good
as
line.
simple as I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry I made you cry.
Yeah,
yeah,
Something
Yeah.
as simple as that is still so powerful.
and admitting that he's a
Yeah.
jealous guy.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many sides to John in his music. You love that rock and roll voice. You love that guttural,
Oh, yeah.
strong
Oh.
mother, well, I want you, she's so heavy voice. And then you love that more restrained Julia type voice, or vulnerable, like Jealous Guy. You got all these different sides of John there just vocally. And that's not even covering the songwriting there. I'm just talking about the vocal.
Just the vocal.
Yeah.
But it's been an incredible journey to study this man as a songwriter, to go back to the early Beatles stuff with the more simple boy-girl relationship songs like I Want to Hold Your Hand, going into more complex relationship songs on Rubber Soul, into psychedelic stuff like Tomorrow Never Knows and Strawberry Fields, autobiographical songs, The Ballad of John and Yoko, universal songs, All You Need Is Love and Give Peace a Chance, and that slogan rock, if you want to, imagine. Power to the People and Give Peace a Chance and that kind of stuff. The political songs on Sometime in New York City. And through it all, so much of it is so deeply personal that you're all touched by it. So it's an amazing gift that he had as a songwriter, as a singer. I love to see how he developed as a human being and how much Yoko changed him. And he admitted it. He said everything voluntarily to the public. Nothing was hidden. I mean, I was talking about this with the Give Me Some Truth compilation. When you read the book, which is also wonderful, sometimes I feel like we're getting this psychological profile of John Lennon. It's almost too much information. They're sharing too much about themselves with John and Yoko. You learn so much about them, and he was brutally honest about just about everything in his life. There are those exceptions. Sometimes, with my guitar, I didn't take it. Yeah, I didn't take it off the wall for 5 years when
I wonder
that
if he
wasn't
meant.
true.
Yeah, I guess he. Yeah, I was gonna say, did he mean it literally? But I think he kind of said, I literally didn't take it down. I don't think I took it down.
Maybe he meant that guitar.
Might have just been an expression. I don't know.
But something like that. And also in the case of Double Fantasy, when he would talk about how the best songs are the ones that are inspirational, that you don't really have to struggle to write. They just come to you.
Like Nowhere Man, he mentioned Nowhere Man came to him like that.
Yeah, okay. But not every song on Double Fantasy was that way. Some of those songs took a few years. There were song fragments that he pieced together. So he kind of made it sound like these were all brand new songs that he just came up with quickly. I mean, Dear Yoko was one of them. But but the fact that he shared so much about his life, how many people would do that? Talk about their childhood, the abandonment that he felt from his parents, and how that left scars, as it would in most people. And he shared that with the public. And, how much Yoko influenced him in the avant-garde world, supporting all the art exhibits that she did, collaborating with her in that regard, how much she made him a feminist, and he admit that. He was not that way in the early years of the Beatles,
Run for your life.
Yeah.
So,
Exhibit A. Yeah.
Which is just a song lyric. It's not, he's not really going to kill anybody.
Yeah. And you were talking, Kid, about him being fearless, and he would do things that he didn't give a damn what people thought, like the Two Virgins album cover right there. Even just taking 5 years off from the public eye. Who did that?
Yep.
You were expected at that time in the 70s to put out an album every single year.
He said in an interview, he used a different word, but he said first they were complaining that we were doing things, and then they were complaining because we weren't doing anything.
See, that's another thing I'm jealous about with you guys, especially Joe, Ken, and Al, is you got to experience a lot of those, interviews and stuff like that, radio spots firsthand. A lot of that stuff,
By the time I got into it, he was retired. He was retired, really.
Right, but there's still those sound bites out there. You really don't have anymore.
But before I wanted to say something, folks, just before I forget, to me, the big tragedy of John being murdered was that, it seemed to me, and I think that he was finding his happiest moments and was figuring out a lot of stuff and was becoming a better dad, learning from his mistake, a more peaceful man, a more, feminist, friendly person. He was kind of like learning and growing in so many ways. And, just at the time, that was always the tragedy. One of the first things went through my mind was, this guy was just getting himself together.
Yeah.
It seemed like, well, for the most part, for John.
Right.
And would you
Yep.
agree?
No, I think that's a good point. I think another good point is, I think that, he would be the first person to say that, he wasn't a saint.
Right.
He definitely wasn't, and he, made mistakes, like all of us do, and I think, there were, I think, in the years, like in the 80s, I kind of remember there was this kind of move to kind of make him a saint
Deification.
Martin Luther Lennon.
Martin
Yeah.
Luther
Yes,
Lennon, that's
as Paul
right.
would
say.
Yeah. And I think he'd be the last person who would want
Exactly.
that.
Well,
Yeah,
you know where I'm
sure.
going to go with this, because you're 100% right, and I guess that was a natural progression of what happened. Nobody want to pay that price for that kind of deification, and
Right.
John didn't want it.
Yeah.
However,
Hmm.
as we know, I'm going to fit this in. I find, as exaggerated and silly as that over saintly attitude was, now it's the other way around. And I won't spend too much time on it, but I'm always saying that on social media itself. I mean, people want all the garbage, they want all the dirt, they want all the exploitation.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's this
Yep.
guy was, all he did was beat his wife. He abandoned his son. He did that, and that's all they focus on. So to me,
Yeah.
it's the other way now.
And they don't
Yeah.
know crap.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I have seen that increasingly. And yeah, I mean, they don't know the full story.
Right.
Oh.
And John doesn't do himself any
Mhm.
favors the way he talks. Like we said before, like in the interview he said, I don't even want to repeat it, but I think in the Playboy interview he said, I fought men and I hit women, any woman.
Hmm.
Yep.
I don't, but he would also say, Paul and I had to write like whatever 200 songs a week, or I must have had what acid. I must have had 1,000,000 trips. It's
Yeah.
like,
Uh-huh.
is it an
Yeah.
exaggeration? To make a point, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's why I just wanted to make that point that he wasn't a saint.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
I mean, and as I said, he'd be the first person to say that.
Mm.
But he learned, as you said, Ken, he learned from his mistakes. And if you read his interviews and learn about his life in context, you learn about, that yes, I'm not condoning some of the things he did in the past. He didn't either.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that's important to realize.
Mm.
And not only that, this is a man who changed his opinion all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
I
Good
mean,
point.
but the
Oh,
thing
yeah.
is that even though he changed his opinion, I think all the time in the moment he meant what he said. And it made him all the more human to us and all the more endearing, as far as I'm concerned.
I do that all the time. When people say, "Oh, John always changes his mind," I do that. Sure. So it doesn't seem strange to me, because I'm always like, well, maybe I'll think this way. Oh, I used to think that, now I think this. It happens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And when you talk about the tragedy of his death, I immediately think about Yoko.
Yes.
The fact that she's still with us, God bless her. She's 87
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah.
If John was alive today, they would have had 40 more years of marriage. Imagine how much they could have done together. Imagine how much more music John could have given us that he could have looked back on. We only have the John Lennon up through those 40 years and the things that he said then when he reflected on his career.
Right.
You don't know if he
Right.
would have changed his opinion about things. I'm
Sure.
always reminded about this one time, and Ken Womack wrote about it in
I
his
think
book,
I know what you're going to say.
when John was with George Martin
Yeah.
Oh,
in
yeah.
1979, and he said to George Martin, I'd like to redo all the Beatles songs all over again. And George said to him, really? What about Strawberry Fields? And he said, especially Strawberry Fields.
Yes. Why would he do that? Why
So,
would he do something like
maybe
that?
he
That's-
wasn't,
you know.
in his mind, he wasn't fully satisfied with everything.
Right.
Yeah.
John Lennon later on in life might have said the exact opposite. We did really good work. You
I think
don't
it's,
know.
Yeah.
It's the thing about artists. I mean, they're very rarely satisfied with their work, I
Yeah.
believe.
Well,
Well-
as he said, he could knock the Beatles, but don't let Mick Jagger knock them.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and if you read that interview he did with Playboy, I mean, I think it was the Playboy interview where they went through the different songs and they'd say, what about
Yeah.
in my life? What about it? And you'd be like, garbage.
Yeah.
That was, that was
Yeah.
crap. I
Yeah,
wrote
yeah,
5
right.
minutes. And you'd be like, oh, come on.
Well, a lot of
And
artists
your
are
bird
not
can
satisfied.
sing. And Your Bird Can Sing was a throwaway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who wouldn't want
that's
to
some
write that
throwaway.
one?
Yeah.
Well, you can't really go. In fact, I think I was listening to Ken, one of your recent interviews about the Walls and Bridges album.
Oh yeah,
I forget.
Owen Lind.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was a point that was brought up there. Say I think you might have mentioned it there where I heard you say "And Your Bird Can Sing." Somewhere recently I heard that. It's a good example. Like, yeah, who wouldn't have wanted to write that? But I think he said, yeah, you can't go by an artist, and I agree. An artist is not the best judge of their own
Critique
works
judge,
sometimes.
They're very
Right.
close to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
On the one hand, I'd love to know, like with all four Beatles. Well, we know with John what they think is their best work, but sometimes I don't want to know because I know
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with them. I just know
Right.
that I will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes John will say that's a good piece of work, or that was a good piece of work. I forget which ones he said that about.
Yeah, I
but,
forget too.
I think
Yeah.
he liked Mind Games, the
He-
song.
But he
I
he
think he said any
basically
band.
said Plastic Ono Band, Imagine, and Double Fantasy were his best works
Right.
up till then.
Right.
And as someone who loves that Lost Lennon period the most and loves Mind
Right.
Games and Walls of Bridges, I don't necessarily agree. But hey, those albums are great albums too, the
Right.
ones that
Yeah.
John mentioned.
Yeah.
But also in regard to, just want to say about the tragedy of losing John, you don't know what musical direction he would have gone in
No.
Right.
had he
Yeah.
lived.
Who knows?
You couldn't just assume that everything would have been like Double Fantasy. It
Exactly.
would have been more of a
Right.
continuation. And if you follow what he said right before he died, and he was into the Talking Heads and Blondie and the Cars and Bruce Springsteen and a whole bunch of artists, you don't know if he would have gone in that direction.
Yeah.
And he loved working on Walking on Thin Ice.
Yes.
Maybe his songs would have sounded more like that. We don't know. What a tragedy that is.
Yeah, because we only
And-
tend to know with anybody what the last thing they thought was. A lot of times people take, say, in John's case, 1980, and they think, well, he would have done this now
Yeah.
because that's what he was doing then. No, you don't know. You just don't know. He could
Yeah.
have changed.
He
Right.
also liked disco. He liked new wave. And
Please
a
don't
few
say
years
rock.
ago,
Reggae.
from
He-
reggae.
He liked Coming Up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I remember in interviewing Chip Mattinger, I think he said this in Lennonology, that after the rock and roll album came out, John had plans of making another album. The only thing we know is that Billy Preston was going to be one of the musicians he wanted on it, but it was going to be more of a dance record. You know? And then once he moved back with Yoko, then everything changed. But
Yeah.
you don't know. You don't know what John would have put out, what styles of
Yeah.
music he would have
Right.
done.
Exactly.
He liked a lot of different styles of music. He was very eclectic too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So-
Can I just say about one of the things else that I admire about John is as a teenager around 85, 86, and kind of living a little bit of a sheltered life, and then being exposed to someone that was involved in an interracial relationship like John was. I think that was
Yeah.
I think that was also a very powerful thing. And as we spoke of, I mean, the guts it took for John to, bring that out in the spotlight, when obviously that wasn't a very fashionable thing, I guess, at the time. And, a lot of the harshness, he and Yoko got, over their relationship, I think, deserves a lot of, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And, and it spoke volumes to me, being able to say it's, love is love. It doesn't matter who you're in love with, as long as you both love each other.
Right. Yeah. Especially what John felt they went through, at least in his mind, with the Beatles and also with the British press. They were very, very cruel to Yoko.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I wanted to just mention, and this is just my gut feeling on this when you talk about the tragedy of John's death. I definitely feel that, man, if he could speak right now, how proud he would be of Julian and Sean
Oh,
and all the
absolutely.
music
Yeah.
that they
For
put out.
sure.
And that if he was alive, you probably couldn't have stopped him from wanting to get involved with their music. And it would have been really nice. I mean, it would have been up to Julian and Sean too, whether they
Right.
wanted.
Of course.
I can't see them saying no, but Julian and Sean, the way that they've carried themselves is something to be really proud of, for which we should give Yoko and I guess Cynthia credit too.
Absolutely.
But
Oh, I could see a huge smile on John's face if he was in the studio with his kids.
oh yeah,
You bet.
to see the talent that
Yeah.
Julian and Sean have musically,
Yep.
it's he would have been, beaming with pride.
Absolutely.
However, we wouldn't have gotten one of Julian's best songs though.
Which is
His first hit.
Oh,
Volat?
Volat. Okay.
No, it's Much Too Late for Goodbyes.
Oh,
sorry.
I never
Okay.
even thought of that.
I didn't think of that either, but yeah, I guess that's true.
Mhm.
All
True
right.
enough.
So if we're done with this, we can move on to our last topic,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
which
good.
is that we all thought that we would bring up. I actually didn't give a number here. Anywhere from
I
3
think
to 5.
three.
I think
Three?
three.
Yeah,
Okay.
three's.
I don't have that many, so
Yeah, so we'll make it three.
Of our favorite John Lennon tribute songs.
Mhm.
Could come from anybody. I have
Okay.
a feeling some of them will be fairly obvious,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
yeah, oh yeah.
but we shall see. Why don't we start? Why not continue with you, Al? Since you're our special
Okay.
guest. Al
You
comes
want me to go
first.
get a sandwich or something? Don't take all mine.
I'll make you second, okay?
Well, actually, I figured that the obvious choices are
Right.
obviously Here Today, Empty
Yeah.
Garden, things like
Mhm.
that. So what I did was I actually pulled a few more obscure things.
I kind of did the
Good.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna do that. I
like-
was gonna look for that.
Like for instance, I found a song by Freddie Garrity, Freddie of the
Wow.
Dreamers.
Oh, okay.
That was never released, but it's on YouTube, and it's just simply called John Lennon. And
Mm.
it's a very kind of wistful reminiscence, since they were kind of contemporaries.
Oh.
I'm writing this down, Al.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Ken, I think I'm gonna need some help with you on this one.
Okay.
Ringo's "Imagine Me There" from the
Oh,
Ringo Rama album. Is that actually a Lennon tribute or
I've
or
never
not?
considered that, and I've never heard Ringo
it's
ever
a
say
nice.
it
It's a
was.
good song.
Yeah,
though.
that's the thing. Okay.
Just because
So
the word "imagine" is in there.
Yeah. So we'll scratch that. Queen in 1982
Yes.
Yes.
made a song called "Life Is Real,"
Mhm.
song for Lennon.
Mhm.
Elton John, along with Empty Garden,
Aha.
did an instrumental
Yes.
called "The Man Who Never Died." That was the B-side of his single "Nikita,"
Oh.
and it
No.
has.
It was the
Hmm?
B-side of "Wrap Her Up," I think.
Oh, okay. I
Oh,
think
wow.
maybe in England it was the B-side of Nikita.
Okay.
And it's very much, it has very much the same feel as "Song for Guy."
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very moving.
And yes,
You can
very
tell
much
it's a
so.
haunting melody, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And supposedly there are lyrics that I assume Bernie wrote, but they've never surfaced anywhere.
all you hear is really just the title.
What's it
Yeah.
called?
The Man Who
The
Never
Ma-
Died.
Yeah.
Man Who Never
From
Died.
Elton John.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
Right.
understand he actually recorded that, I think, before Empty Garden, but he released it late.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And the last one is Bob Dylan,
Mhm.
who
All right.
it took him until 2013,
Right.
but he did, and his album Tempest,
Mhm.
but he did a song called "Roll On John."
Yeah.
You're right.
I remember being very touched by the lyrics in there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe?
Well, I don't have much to say, so that's good to get it over with me. But now look, "Empty Garden" is my favorite John Lennon tribute.
Oh,
That
wow.
includes Paul and
Okay.
George. I like "Empty Garden" the best. I don't know what it is about it. I think I mean it's really obviously touching and emotional. The lyrics are so heartfelt. But of course, Bernie Taupin wrote the lyrics to the songs, and Elton John wrote the music. And I was
Mhm.
just recently watching interviews with the two of them. As much as I loved Elton John and Bernie Taupin together, I never really watched interviews, and over the last few days I've been doing that. So I thought, well, because Elton was such a personal friend too, it actually speaks volumes too, more than if it was just somebody that liked John, his music or something.
Hmm.
So that meant a lot to me. And of course, Here Today, Paul's
Hmm.
song. I mean, the two of them loving each other as they did and being such friends for so long. That's such a personal song. I mean, everybody's going to love, I would think, Here Today.
Hmm.
Um, I've heard a lot of fan songs over the years, which none of them really grabbed me, fan made tunes. I can't
Hmm.
remember any that I really was like, wow, that touched me. But in keeping with, I was saying before, sort of, I could relate to John Lennon a little bit in certain ways, saying what he wanted to and being, coming, upsetting the apple cart. I was going to mention Roll on John by Bob Dylan. I am a Bob Dylan fan. I really am. And
Hmm.
I don't care for that particular song. So I'm going to name one that I don't care for too. I'm surprised. First of all, it took him so long. The
Yeah,
Hey,
Tempest.
exactly.
I love the Tempest album. That is one of my favorite Bob Dylan albums of all, from the '60s till now. I think Tempest is a great album, but I'm so surprised that song I don't care for. And I think the lyrics, you said you like the lyrics, Ken. For
mm,
me, they're kind of cliched. When you start name checking and saying like, let's come together. And I read the news today. Oh boy,
mm,
and coming from, of all people, Bob Dylan. I
yeah,
mean, come on, Bob, you're a genius with lyrics, and I
yeah.
love Dylan. So I was a little disappointed in that song by Dylan. And other than that, um, I I have nothing else to say because I don't know that many. I was looking up a few. I only had found out.
Don't say any.
No, but Alan said that won't say any more. Any ones we haven't said, but Queen. I didn't know Queen had one, and
Yeah.
I had I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
read about it, and Al just mentioned it.
Yeah.
This all comes in handy for me because I do thematic sets on this on every
Oh, there
little
you
thing. So
go.
any
Yes.
songs that
Ah,
I don't know about, I'm
Yeah.
writing down here.
no
Yeah.
wonder you
There you
were
go.
taking
Shot
notes.
him in the back,
Yeah.
and down he went.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Boy, I didn't know you had that hidden talent there, Joe.
Oh,
You
oh,
were take
I
Dylan.
love Paying Blood. You don't hear me. You want to hear me sing Paying Blood off Tempest.
Do you want to?
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, you want me to sing it? It's almost the season. You want me to do some of Dylan's Christmas album for you?
Oh,
No,
No, no, that's all
I don't
right.
think
It
so. I don't
must be Santa.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
All right.
Tom, you are next.
Thank you, Ken. I am not the biggest fan of when a band sounds Beatlesque in general. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. However, these two songs, it fits because they're tributes to John Lennon. And one is "Life Is Real," like Al said. I do believe musically, it's very Beatlesque, and the other one is called "John Lennon by the Outfield," and
Mhm.
again another one that's very Beatlesque sounding, especially with music and the vocals during the verses. And I really just wanted to bring them up too because the singer Tony Lewis
Yes.
died a
Yes.
couple of
Yes.
months ago, so I wanted to
Right.
make sure I bring that up because the Outfield was a favorite band of mine during the '80s, but good stuff. And then obviously, I mean, for me, I know Joe, I know your favorite one, but mine is Here Today. Um, you know, I glad he didn't do as a release as a single. I'm glad it was just an album track. I mean, it's fine where it is on the album, but I love seeing Paul do this live. But having his best friend from all those years ago doing a song for John is I think is top notch.
Hmm.
And just the whole arrangement with the strings
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
Yeah.
very yesterday-ish in that regard. So yeah. Kit,
Mhm.
how about you?
I'm going to name two obvious ones and one that's a little bit of a curveball. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Here Today is probably my favorite. I loved it before. I was so glad when Paul added it to his concert set list. I loved it back when it was kind of just an album track off of Tug of War. I just thought it was beautiful, as you said, the arrangement perfect, and the lyrics were just so touching.
Hmm.
Simple but beautiful.
Right.
Just really cuts to the chase in terms of just captures their friendship beautifully.
Hmm.
And if I
Uh,
excuse me, if I could say, it's also interesting how the approach that Paul takes from it too, for a conversation that he
yeah,
might have
Yeah.
had, as opposed to just
exactly.
saying,
Right.
you were this, you were that, or whatever. It's kind of a, what would you say, if I,
Yeah. and kind of the whole thing, as he says at concert, is, always tell people you love them before it's too late.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. So it's just beautiful. Also, I have to give another vote to Empty Garden. I love the lyrics to that too.
Yeah,
I love it's such a, Bernie Taupin. I mean, he's just an incredible songwriter, and just such beautiful metaphors about a gardener and the gardener, being away, from the garden and the garden, like not being tended and I mean,
Yes.
it's heart-wrenching. And Elton John, I mean, you can just tell. I mean, he just sings it with such passion.
Yeah, it's great.
You can
There's
just
pain in
tell.
his voice.
Yeah.
There is. You can hear
Yeah.
the pain in his
Yeah.
voice. I mean, you
Right.
can just tell. I don't think he does perform that song very often. I read that somewhere.
Only
It's
only at
very
Madison
difficult.
Square Garden.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Only place
And you
he'll
can see
perform.
why. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would be like emotionally.
I find it, when you think about that, when a friend has a friend pass away and they're a musician and they're singing about them, I think about that and it's like, that can't be easy. Like you said,
No.
with when you hear, Elton John's voice in that song, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, you
Imagine.
can hear the anguish, and that,
You can hear it. I mean,
And look at Paul can't hold it together sometimes when he
Right.
sings
Yeah.
about John.
right.
Exactly.
And again,
Amoeba Records. Yeah.
Right.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you can hear it. Absolutely. And
All
my
right,
last.
curveball.
Okay, here's the curveball. God Part 2 by U2.
Ah, right.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, I would consider that a tribute.
Yeah, I mean, I
know
know
that.
it's a little bit of a curveball,
Yeah.
but it's done in a very, obviously in the same way as God. I mean, it's
Mhm.
structured in the same way, and then of course that blistering verse against Albert
Yeah.
Goldman, which I always
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Well, that's a good line. That's
Instant
where that comes
karma's
from. I
gonna
heard that
get him
line.
if I don't get
Yeah.
him first.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I didn't know. Right, I
but-
heard that line, but I don't know the song.
Right.
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
line.
The rest of the song, it's just kind of patterned after,
Right.
and of course, Bono and the band were huge fans of John Lennon's, and
Yes.
so that was definitely meant as a nod to him, and I love Larry Mullen's drums on that too. So I mean, it's just
yeah.
you can tell it's
They
meant
were on
as
top of their game there. That was from the Rattle and Hum album,
Rattle
right
and Hum.
after,
Yes.
right after the Joshua Tree.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
there was no band bigger at that point in time.
huge, absolutely. So
Sure.
yeah.
All right. Good list from everybody. My number one song, I'm agreeing with many of you, has to be Empty Garden.
Oh,
And like you said, Kit, the lyrics of that song are it's the perfect marriage with the melody. And the line, it's funny how one insect can damage so much grain. That
Yeah.
gets me every single time.
Yeah.
Poetry.
He just said that roots grow stronger if only he could hear. It's such a moving song altogether. And like we just said, Elton's vocals on there, you can feel the emotion, you could feel the pain.
What gets to me is when he says, "And with every drop that falls,
We hear your
we
name.
hear your name." That part is what
Yeah.
gets me.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, you couldn't write better lyrics than that. You really couldn't. I also have to give a nod to Here Today. I mean,
sure.
it's just so touching. Paul's tribute to John there, the whole arrangement of it all. He took a lot of time for that one at the right time when it was necessary. You
Right.
knew that right after John died, everybody would be waiting to hear what he had to say.
right.
I want to throw out a few other songs, just a couple. Obviously, you have to mention All Those Years Ago.
I was
really
going
do.
to wonder.
Yeah.
I
Almost
love
forgot
the
about
song,
Yeah.
and I love all the words in it too.
Mm.
You were the one who had lectured me all those years ago. There's so many great lines in that one, and I love the melody, and I love the guitar work from George, as I always do. But I'd like to mention a partial tribute song, which I think was a work of art. The late great Johnny Ace
Oh, yeah, Paul
Mhm.
Simon.
from Paul Simon.
Yes.
I think it
Yes.
was so brilliant because he's dealing with three people, all named John, who all got shot to death.
Right.
And just using the name Ace as though, they were the best in their fields, that kind of thing.
Right.
Johnny Ace, the R&B singer, President Kennedy, and John Lennon. and how it's all juxtaposed in that song was so absolutely brilliant.
And that,
And
of course, poignant moment of when he was doing it live, and someone went on stage.
Oh, and some guy, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was real. For a while, I thought maybe that was kind of staged for effect. No, it was real.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
And one more song I want to mention, and in a way, this is kind of cheating because it wasn't written because John died. It was a tribute to John before he died, but it was released after he died. So it kind of carries that with it. It's a partial tribute that Michael Nesmith did called I'll Remember You. And he mentions Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in there and John and the Beatles, again, being the best in their fields, making the parallel there. With Fred and Ginger, you dance and you dance and you dance across the silver screen. And with John, and you sang and you sang and you sang in your submarine, you know? And it was really brilliant how he mixed the two together. But it was never intended to be, you know, a tribute for John after he died. So Mike Nesmith of Monkees fame, really brilliant song. Check out all these songs if you never heard them on YouTube. All worth your while.
Absolutely.
All right.
Great.
So I guess that puts an end to our show. Why don't we just give everybody our contact information and let us know what we're all doing. Tom.
Yeah, thanks. If we got another half hour here, I'll try to get this.
2 hours.
All right, real quick. Here's the $2 tour. 2 weeks ago, we did a show with Ethan Alexanian, our good friend from Fans on the Run. We talked about the 2013 album New. Last week we recorded a show all about the Bruce McMouse show. We recorded it while we were watching, and we were kind of hoping that YouTube would allow that since we had the volume down and you couldn't hear anything. But unfortunately, YouTube tagged it, and we had to, or Andy had to just put a picture of Paul throughout our conversation. It was pretty much a commentary and a review of the Bruce McMouse show, and we got a lot of information from friend Adrian Sinclair, who, as we all know, is working on the McCartney legacy with our good buddy Alan Cozen. Yesterday, I had the wonderful privilege to talk to Jerry Murata, who a lot of people know was the main drummer on the Press to Play album. And man, the stories he told about Paul McCartney, Peter Gabriel, Hall & Oates, Orleans, Elvis Costello. I mean, these are gold stories that I just can't wait till this episode gets put out. And speaking of Jerry Murata and his performance on Press to Play, if you want, go to YouTube and type in Pizza and Fairy Tales, and that's the bootleg for Press to Play, and you're going to hear that album stripped down to what Jerry Murata and how it sounded when he worked on it, because he wasn't there for the whole time. He was just there to record those initial 11 tracks. So good stuff there. And we also, on our YouTube channel, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, we also started a new series called Rank the Tracks, where we go album and album and we rank all the songs, and it's been a lot of fun, and we've had a lot of positive feedback on that, except for Joe, and he wasn't really happy.
I love this. I love it. I can't wait for the wildlife.
What I mean was where I put Admiral Halsey and Uncle Albert. He wasn't really a fan of that.
I'm sorry, I blew it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let's just call it fatigue of the song. Okay.
I want to do it here, but if Ken would ever agree, I would love to do the rankings of the songs here.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
Great.
It's a group decision here. We're a democracy, like the Beatles.
Exactly.
Remember that.
That's right.
And if one guy doesn't want to do it,
yeah. But
That's right.
Andy and I have been doing a lot of fun with that. We're doing that weekly as well. So we're actually doing 2 shows a week now, which, don't tell my wife, because,
at the office, you have an office meeting.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it's email
an executive meeting.
Executive meeting.
That's
Two Legs Podcast at gmail.com. You can email us. You can find us on Facebook at Two Legs Podcast, Instagram and Twitter at Two Legs Podcast as well. And next.
Oh my.
Joe, you're good. Very good.
You're good. You are beautiful.
You got to find a way to get get a
Honeymooners.
line in
Yeah.
there.
Joe, how about you? What's going on with
Well,
you?
it's the beautiful part of me is it's always so quick. All I would
That's
ask
what
you to
she said.
do, if you like Beatles and solo Beatles and other kind of silly stuff on the side, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mean Mr. Mayo. And as we said at the beginning of the show, I just hit 10,000 subs, and because of that, I did a contest. And there's still time to enter the contest. You just have to look at the video that talks about it. Just
Has
go to my
anybody got to the second stage yet?
No, well, I'm waiting till I get 10
Okay.
people that get it right. And you'll see what I
Right.
mean. You just have to watch the video to get the details. But if you
Hmm.
go to
Very
Mean
nice.
Mr. Mayo and you just go to the newest video and back up 5 or so. There's about 4 or 5 videos ago, and you'll see it. The 10,000 subs contest.
Okay. Can
Good
any of
luck.
us win?
I don't remember you or did you? I don't remember you entering.
Oh,
But I
well,
can't-
I just want to know.
Found it.
But I can't. But I did. But that's it. I can't do it again then, right?
No.
Okay.
Only one shot.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Darn
All
it.
right. Al, if people want to get in touch with you, let them know how and tell us what's new on the horizon.
Okay, well, this is the current issue of Beetlefan magazine.
Who is that on the cover,
And
though?
that it would be John Lennon, as a matter of fact.
Ooh.
If you can see it, there we go. There, I have it actually on screen.
Oh.
And
What?
and inside is the second part of my look at the amazing afterlife of the Beatles as a group over the last 50 years.
Oh wow.
And
Interesting.
the next issue will be out right around the holidays, and I have there the first part of. Been doing a lot of writing this year, you know. So I know I know what Paul's been going through, creatively.
You've been writing in rock
Down.
Right.
It's rock
Yeah,
down.
exactly,
Rock
exactly.
down. Yeah.
But
Rock down.
but in the next issue will be the first part of a look at how Beetlefan covered the entire anthology project, from the settling of the EMI lawsuits all the way to the release of the DVD set
Wow.
of the anthology. And in doing the research, I found out a couple of things about Her Majesty.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Back in '94,
This Her Majesty.
Yeah.
yes, this.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Is this an expose?
Your Majesty. Tough crowd. Found out a couple of things. In 1994, I did a point counterpoint type of piece on whether the appeal of Beatles music was going to continue through the generations. Little did I know of what would be ahead. The counterpoint was by one Kid O'Toole.
Wow.
And who basically looked at it from the perspective of Generation X.
Right.
Excellent. And
94,
their ability to be a Beatles fan. And 2 years later, right in the middle of the whole anthology releases, Bill put the word out, asking for because the internet Beatles phenomenon, if you want to put it that way, had really kind of begun. So he put the word out asking for volunteers for somebody to write about the internet for Beatlefan. And much as back in '79, I had answered the call for a New York correspondent, Kit answered the call and did her first Hard Day's Net column, which means that this spring she will have been doing Hard Day's Net for 25 years.
Ooh.
God.
Wow.
And I just turned in my column today.
Yeah.
My latest column.
Wow.
She started when she
Yeah.
was 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about.
Good answer, Joe.
Just
Good
about.
answer.
And
My God, that's amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
This calls
Wow.
for a celebration.
Yes, break out
really?
the champagne.
I'm gonna celebrate.
That's-
I'll have to when the
Yeah.
time comes.
Clear the field.
I'll have to remind you folks.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Oh,
And then
wow. That is really
and
cool.
and then as mentioned earlier, Bruce Spizer's Let It Be book is out, and as was the case with the White Album book and the Abbey Road book and the Sgt. Pepper book, I have a chapter in here. It touches on the Beatles somewhat, but it deals more with the news of 1970. So
Okay.
there's, Apollo 13, Kent State, things like that, and a lot more.
It's
So
a great book. It is really
Yeah.
worth it. It's
Mhm.
really. Yeah, just top tier people are right for it. Al, Pierce Hemmingson, and Bruce, of course, put together.
Right,
He
Bill,
writes it.
Bill, King,
Bill King.
Okay.
Yep.
Frank Daniels.
Great book.
It's like a team.
Yep,
Wow.
the A team.
Yeah.
Very
Toast.
good. You are an 80s person.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right, we're going to save the best for last, which means Kit. She's going to have all the contact information about us.
Yes.
So I just want to let you know about a few things. Again, special contest starting Thursday on my website to win John and Yoko, Plastic Ono Band, the new coffee table book. Just go to kenmichaelsradio.com. Homepage leads to my special contest page, and you know how to win. It's really easy to win. Also, I have a brand new YouTube channel, which started about 2 months ago. In the last 2 weeks, I've had the chance to interview Mark Hudson for several reasons, because Mark produced the brand new Joey Molland album from Badfinger called Be True to Yourself. And the end of last year, he produced a posthumous album for Harry Nilsson called Lost and Found with some of Harry's last compositions. So he produced that. And we talked a lot about working with Ringo, specific songs from Ringo's solo catalog that he worked on there. And there was a lot of Beatle talk that he threw in as well, and constantly mentioning how John Lennon was his biggest influence.
Wow.
So that's on my YouTube page. And just a few days ago, I interviewed a guy that Tom interviewed with Andy on Two Legs. That's Owen Ling. And
Talented man.
He is a freelance writer who's written for the Irish Times, We Are Cult, record collector. And not long ago, he wrote an article about John's Walls and Bridges album and how he felt that it was his best solo album. So as soon as I read that, I said, got to interview this guy. So they're both on my YouTube page, Ken Michaels Radio. Check that out. There's 4 interviews on there now. Joey Molland was the first. Ashley Kahn was the second. Then you've got, as I said, Mark Hudson and now Owen Ling. And please subscribe to my channel. The last show on Things We Said Today, which was last week, was a 50th anniversary All Things Must Pass show with Darren DeVivo and Alan Kozin. Our next one coming out next week will be a 40th anniversary of Double Fantasy. There's all these anniversaries, and that'll be next week. And also I did another recording with Sam Wiles for his podcast called Paul or Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a conversation. I came up with this idea. What are the top 3 things we admire and love about Paul McCartney? And at the same time, what are our top 3 criticisms of Paul McCartney?
Wow.
And that's already up now on the internet. Again, the name of his podcast is called Paul or Nothing. And apart from that, don't forget Beatles trivia every single week on my website. Beatles trivia and games page. Click on the link for that. You can win 1 out of 10 great prizes every single week. Very often, Kit's book is there. So you got to have that to your collection.
Yeah, I have it.
Yep. It's somewhere back
I'm
there.
in the clear.
Okay. So as I said, saving the best for last. Okay.
Okay. Well, I just a couple of days ago, the episode just went up. I appeared on friend of our show, Marv Quibble's Pods Like Us.
Mhm.
And we had a fun conversation about podcasting itself, but also we went into a conversation about what makes music timeless. And we ended up going in all different directions with that. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So you can go onto Podbean and look up Pods Like Us. I'll have a link on my page, and I'll put one on the Talk More Talk page as well. I think you'll really enjoy it. My Beatles gift guide, holiday gift guide, will be coming up very soon. I'm working working on it right now. I've compiled everything, so now I'm just getting everything together and writing it up, and so that will be up very soon for your gift, gifts for others and gifts for yourselves, of course.
Mhm.
And I know I mentioned this last time, but there's still time to sign up for my History of Motown class, which starts
Yes. Glad you
January
reminded me.
28th. Yep, and I recommend that you sign up because these do fill up. The adult ed classes that Monmouth University offered in I think it was like September and October, they did sell out. So so I encourage you to sign up when you can. And I have the link to that on my Facebook page. I will also again put a link on Talk More Talk as well. So so I hope you'll sign up for that. It's 3 nights, and it's going to be the history of the label and lots of music, lots of fun. It's going to be, I think, a great time. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us, of course, on our Facebook page, talkmoretalk.com. You can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at TalkMoreTalk1, that's the number 1. And you can find us on YouTube, and please subscribe. We're trying to get up to 100 subscribers. So
I mean, 1,000.
1,000.
I'm
We
sorry,
got
1,000.
1,000.
Oh,
We're
100.
up at 100. Sorry about that.
I'm trying to get to 100.
1,000 subscribers.
You gotta crawl before you can walk.
That's right. That's right. So we're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. So so please head over and subscribe. And of course, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on virtually every platform you can think of. So as always, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your neighbors.
Enemies.
Shall we do a 1,000 subscriber contest?
Yeah, maybe we should. We'll have to talk about. We've sort of talked about that before,
Yeah.
so we'll have
Okay.
to discuss that. So, and remember, our next episode is December 21st.
That's right.
McCartney III. That's everybody's going to want to be there for that.
McCartney III. Yep.
From start to finish, nothing
Yes.
but McCartney III.
And I'm sure everybody's heard it by now. So
Yep.
I haven't.
Tom
No,
and
only one
Joe.
song.
Yeah.
Tom and Joe will show you their entire collection of every vinyl
I'll
and
have them
CD.
all hanging
Yeah.
up on the
Oh,
wall. here.
I'm only going to have like 2 or 3 out of the 10.
Yep.
I think at some point, both of you are going to have your own Beatles museum.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yep.
You have to charge people to go and visit. It'll happen. At this rate, it's going to be a lot sooner than we expect.
I need a bigger place.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So this has been fantastic. I hope
Good
you like
show.
this John Lennon tribute.
Yes.
Thanks to all of you. Thank you, Al, for joining us. You know you're welcome.
Thanks,
anytime.
Al.
Anytime.
Good
How,
man.
Yeah,
how
it
about
was- it was
how about
great.
tomorrow night?
Yeah. Hey, what?
I'm sure you'll be back in the new year.
Yes,
Far
you
away,
will.
mine
Great.
host.
Well, thank you.
Far away, minus. All right. So thanks to all of you for watching tonight.
Oh.
And as I said before, John, wherever you are here.
Ah,
How you doing,
You're
Johnny?
here with us always. Okay. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.